Welcome to Self Matters. I'm Mare Robineau. I'm the Language Resources Team Leader at CAVAL, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I would like to pay my respects to the elders, past and present. I lead a team of multilingual collection development specialists, and we work with over 50 libraries across Australia and out here in New Zealand to assist with the procurement and the promotion of the resources in various languages. As for a lot of other CAVAL's initiatives, collaboration is key to our endeavors. I joined ALIA Multicultural just over 2 years ago, where I met a group of experienced, passionate librarians who bring together their perspectives, ideas, and initiatives in regard to all aspects of supporting multiculturality in Australia. Today, I'm joined by the group's founding member and convener, Mare Maticevski from RMIT University Library. Hi, Mare.
Hi, Marie.
And ALIA Multicultural Secretary, Mai Van Dang, Diversity and Literacy Librarian at Dandenong Libraries. Hi, Mai Van. I would like to start by asking you both to tell us a little bit about yourself and what is the ALIA Multicultural Group about and what inspired you to join?
I'm one of the founding members of ALIA Multicultural and the convener since it started. ALIA Multicultural was actually formed by Oriana Acevedo and myself, and we had some initial meetings with ALIA about this. So Oriana used to be with the State Library of New South Wales as a multicultural consultant, and her and I connected many years ago when I used to be a convener of the Public Libraries Victoria Multicultural Special Interest Group. So when an opportunity came up to consider forming a group at a national level, Oriana reached out to me and said, we should do this. And so I was like, yes, we should do this. And after a few meetings, we invited Rita Hardy, who's from Maryback Libraries, and she's another person that we have sort of connected with in a multicultural space. Historically, Rita was also part of the Public Libraries Multicultural Special Interest Group. Mai Van is also part of that special interest group, and she's the convener now. We also invited Sandra Jamal later, who came in just as the group was about to launch, and she looked after some of the communications of our group. We all have a previous shared history of commitment to advocacy, and I guess this meant that combined we could reach out quite broadly to form the group. We had a lot of connections that we had formed across Australia based on these shared ideas. I currently work as an academic librarian at RMIT University. I've also worked in school libraries and as a teacher librarian and manager in public libraries, as I mentioned earlier, as a multicultural and diversity librarian and community programs librarian. And I guess this history has enabled me to make connections quite broadly. During my time in public libraries, as I mentioned, I was part of Multicultural Special Interest Group, and I convened that group for almost 3 years. This is where I met Mai Van and Rita and Oriana, and where our advocacy started for a multicultural focus. ALIA Multicultural is an extension of this initial connection with a shared understanding that multicultural focus is not specific to a sector, but it applies across sectors and in education too. In fact, it applies across society, really. Being a national group strengthens the focus. We are also a group that have diverse representation from the sector, including we have allied professionals that are part of our group. We have research-focused academics. We have public and academic libraries represented. We've had health, and at one point we also had prison libraries represented as well as CAVAL. So that's a little bit about my background. I have a Macedonian background in terms of my cultural thing, and I migrated to Australia, and I grew up not speaking English as a first language. I grew up, I didn't start speaking English until I learnt it when I started school. So my experience of growing up in Australia is very much an experience of being a person trying to belong the whole time.
Thanks, Mare. Thanks for sharing. Maivan, would you like to talk a little bit about yourself and your experience?
Yes, thank you, Mare. That was a great introduction about ALIA Multicultural. So my name is Maivan. I'm come from Greater Dandenong Libraries. I've been in public libraries for about 18 years now, but only as a librarian for the last 10 years. So about 10 years ago, I've got my first official role as a librarian in public libraries, and my first portfolio ever, and still my portfolio today, is the diversity support portfolio. So where I look after our community languages collection, parts of it back then, and some of our multicultural programming as well. And then I got the chance to visit, to participate in the then PLVN, now PLV, Multicultural Services Special Interest Group. And I've learned a lot from Mare, because she was as well, because she was also the convener at the time. And it's just really helped me develop my, I suppose, I don't know how you put it, but my career's really helped me have a sight of what my career would look like and how I want to proceed with multicultural communities. Because even though I've worked in public libraries for a long time, never in a professional way as such. And so, yeah.
How has your experience shaped your perspective on diversity in the information sector?
I mentioned earlier that, I guess I'm a migrant. I migrated here, and growing up and starting school without the English language meant that I was obviously always in a position of seeking belonging and navigating understanding of what it means to be Australian. I always connected with people who had shared experiences of seeking belonging throughout life, even though our migration stories are vastly different and everyone's is quite unique. I often also seek out other librarians who have shared experiences that are from diverse backgrounds via groups that I, take part in. ALIA Multicultural obviously is that group at the moment, and it's that shared understanding of how we belong in the sector and how we sometimes need to really work harder to improve representation. The library sector certainly does need to work harder to improve representation at all levels. It shouldn't feel like you need to always explain yourself. Even simple things like needing to say how to pronounce your name, all sorts of things like this. The sector does need to work harder, because these are all little bits that actually act to exclude.
Thanks, Mare. Yeah.
So when I was about 2 years old, I moved from a Malaysian refugee camp to Australia, specifically to Springvale, Melbourne. And we were slightly luckier, because I think when we moved to Springvale, it was already had a lot of Vietnamese and Chinese settlement here. And so we were quickly able to find a community that we can tap into and support, and then we supported each other, I suppose. But I was really young at that stage, so I wasn't really sure how we settled in. But like Mare, I came from a non-English speaking background. One of the funny stories I like to say is that I didn't know how to write my name till year one, so grade one. So that sort of indicates how much of my English background we had back then. But I think at the same time, we're very lucky to have grown up in the city of Greater Dandenong. As I mentioned before, we are so diverse here. So even back then, it was quite diverse as well. And we were lucky that the library was already here, and we used the libraries a lot in Springvale. So yeah, so I grew up in a very diverse community, and then when I started working in Springvale Library. I came here when I was in year 10 for a work experience, and I think I never left public libraries since then. So I'm still here, and it's really nice because it's so diverse, but our workforce here is actually so diverse as well. One year for Mother's Language Day, I made these badges, and I asked everyone to write what languages they spoke or read in, and I got over 30 languages spoken by a staff of 80 people.
When I came here, I too was really young, but I grew up in Marrickville in Sydney, which was considered a very diverse area as well at the time. And I really relate to that whole concept of growing up in a very diverse area, how that is a strength, and how, because you're growing up with other people who have these shared experiences. And I very much felt that too. In fact, my sense of involvement with my local public library, back then they used to have a Marrickville Library had, I think they're called Inner West Libraries now, but they used to have children's libraries back in the day. And just up the road from where I lived there, the children's library branch of the Warren was located there. And because my parents worked, you know, in factories, long hours and stuff like that, I would come home from school and let my brother in, and then because, you know, I had to look after us both. And then I would head to the library after school at the children's library. And I used to volunteer at the library, and that was my safe space. And a lot of, and the children's librarian there was fantastic. And because it was all kids, yeah, we just loved it. And I guess that was the start of my love of libraries, really. It was the place that I guess looked after me while my parents were at work. So yeah, and I still think libraries do have a little bit of that today.
Working here for 18 years, you watch children come in and watch them grow up. We even watch some get married and have children. So it's really, really funny. But it's that sense of community here as well. People feel that they can share stories with you because they can relate to you somehow.
It's funny, like, yeah, my experience with multiculturality in Australia is very different from yours, because I grew up in a small town in France when it was absolutely not multicultural. We all looked the same, we all came from the same place, and there was no diversity whatsoever. I migrated in Australia in my 30s, and now my children, I have a French mom and an Iranian dad, and they feel very much Australian. But I didn't expect my 6-year-old questioning like her identity like as this early.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I really related when you talked about, like, you know, safety nets and connection with people who have different experiences, but like it feels that we are lucky, and the libraries does that to bring people together and share different experiences.
And it always takes a good librarian to make that space feel so safe as well.
Is there a defining moment of work with multicultural communities that reinforce the importance of inclusion in libraries?
So I've just got a really simple one. I mean, this is applicable also, I guess, to university libraries and other spaces as well. So my one that I want to share is, I guess when I was working in public libraries, I used to run what was known as a conversation cafe, and this program was set up to be as broad-reaching as possible. So it was people from all backgrounds could come and just practice their language skills. And it was also open to people who had strong language skills to actually come and participate in the conversations, so that there was an interchange of learning experience. What I found during that time is I used to have international students who would come to the public library to participate in this program, as well as asylum seekers, as well as like an older grandmother or something who, you know, finally found time to practice her language and so forth. But with the university students, I realized the international students, it made me realize there weren't enough spaces for international students to actually go and be able to practice this or be able to develop their intercultural skills. So when they come to Australia, they're often thrown into learning straight away. And this whole thing of trying to understand the culture around you is something that has to be sped up really quickly. Working with students in universities now, I can kind of see how important the different sectors are in supporting international students as well. And, you know, running that program was a defining moment because I understood that it wasn't just about public libraries. It was actually something that affects our understanding of health, our understanding of our legal systems, our understanding of what citizenship is, our understanding of education, just our understanding of being in this country and how all these sectors need to work together. So that's why I guess I can see it everywhere.
There are times when you get feedback from the community and you think, wow, yes, it's really important to them that we actually acknowledge them in the country, whether it's through collections or programming. For example, we do community language book days every year, a few of them each year. So we cycle through the different community languages that we have. So we don't just focus on one every year. We focus on a different one, several different ones each year. So this year, we did one for Khmer, of Khmer community. And some of the feedback we received was just really amazing. For example, I have one here that says, I really enjoyed seeing the Cambodian dance performance in the library. I would love to see more programs related to community. Thank you for making Cambodian feel seen and acknowledged. So getting feedback like that during programming is just amazing. You feel like you really made someone's day. For example, when we first introduced the Udo collection at Springvale, someone saw it and they were so happy that we acknowledged that they were here in the community. We had a collection for them, that they wanted to donate it, donate to the library, because they said they just really loved it and that they wanted to contribute to that collection because it's for their community. All the work we do is worthwhile, but it just makes it seem, wow, I am doing something right.
That's great, and it's a sign of great engagement with your community to get that feedback, because often, like we said, that the feedback you receive is like people like to pick on what doesn't work, but when you get the positive feedback as well, it means that there's a real like exchange of ideas and feedback, and that's like well done. It's amazing.
I also love the focus on increasing the visibility of communities based on their language and identity, and how important that is in the work that libraries do, and particularly your library service does that really well, my van. So I think that's wonderful.
I just wanted to add a little bit in. So before I had the chance to look after the collections here, I have been working in public libraries, and but not from a librarian's point of view. But when I started working with the collections, I didn't realize how much sensitivity that actually goes into these collections. For example, you don't put one collection on top of each other, because some people might see that as, why are they on top of us? Are they better? Or it's little things like that. And then understanding the background of some of our community as well. So for example, our Vietnamese collection is one of the longest and one of the biggest collection. And it's just amazing because internal wars in Vietnam back then. And so the books that they see published, they don't agree with some of the concepts in there. And then they tell you, and then they get so passionate that they even, some of them cried, and some of them says, it's just really, I love it here. I just want us to, not be promoting one concept over another. And yeah, things like that. It's just amazing that you learn so much looking after a language collection that you didn't think would be possible.
That kind of speaks to the importance of having professionals with that knowledge, and to actually understand that cultural nuance, and to understand their communities really well, so that they can kind of work with their communities around these understandings. Obviously, part of your background and your understanding contributes to that really strongly. But that's something we're always part of learning, I think. We're always learning about what our cultural understanding needs to always increase with all communities.
And there's a trial and error as well. Like sometimes you just have to try something, and like you said, like about putting a language on a shelf, like you try on top of another, you would not necessarily think you're going to offend anyone. You're just trying to find a space, and then it's like, oh no, it has to. So you can move it again to make sure everybody's feel considered and respected and happy. It's
which actually also reminds me of a funny story. Sorry, I shared a lot. So we have a Sinhalese collection in Dandenong, and it goes over 3-4 bays, right? And then they get borrowed a lot. So a lot of the times the shelves looks quite empty. It looks like we don't have much books. And then one day, one of the staff, maybe they weren't aware, because the collection next to it was getting a bit tight. So what they did, they moved the collection along and reduced one of the Sinhalese shelving. And then immediately we got feedback from the patient saying, oh, what happened? Are you not getting as much books anymore? Why is there one shelf less? And I said, oh, no, we're fine. We have books. They're just being borrowed. So we had to move them back.
The real estate of shelving is really important. And I think the visibility of where the collections are is part of that too. And I always know a library service is putting a lot of effort into their connecting with communities when they actually highlight their language collections and bring them to the front rather than tucking them away back in a corner somewhere and the community can't see themselves as soon as they walk in. So yeah, I think it's great that the community knows exactly the collection is there.
What are some challenges facing multicultural library professionals today, and how can we as a group advocate for change?
So I think continual advocacy and amplification of focus for multicultural focus, because we don't have the equity yet, and we haven't reached parity, and we do have issues around representation that hasn't been improved. So we do the advocacy need is still there. Part of that is continual advocacy for improved diversity in the workforce at all levels with lived experience that are part of decision making and shaping of libraries and services that are delivered. Ensuring visibility and amplification of focus for everything multicultural. You should never feel that all of a sudden multicultural focus is not important, and we shouldn't have this continual experience of it being a precarious position, and we need to continually be advocating for it. I do look forward to a time where we don't need to advocate, but we're definitely not there yet.
And I suppose when I first started over 10 years ago, when I would go to a seminar or a conference, I don't know, I don't know why I do it, but I look around and I see, is there like a similar face to mine as in an Asian background? But starting 10 years ago, it's like I go there and you rarely see someone from the same background as myself. But then as the years go on, like last time I attended a conference, I started noticing, oh wait, there's a lot more diversity now than it was compared to 10 years ago. So we are slowly working towards it, I think. I think it's a great sign. Also coming from a more frontline perspective in relations to this question, I find that there is, as Mare says, there's a lack of understanding of the significance of, and again, coming from a collections perspective of multicultural collections. And as you mentioned before, sometimes people lose the sight and then they, tuck that language away and in the corner of the library, they don't make it visible or they don't put it in a prime location. And I see that still happening sometimes because just earlier this year, I got a feedback from someone and their feedback was to me was, oh, your multicultural community collection is, your community language collection is not so popular. Maybe we should move it to the corner there and put this more popular collection in this location because it's currently in a very prime location. And I said, absolutely not. If it's a popular collection, there are people. And so if the people are looking for it, they wouldn't always know where to find them. But if it's a collection like community languages, people are not that aware of it. They don't know to go and ask for it. So if you don't put it in front of them, they won't see and they won't ask. If you put it in the corner, they will never go there. That education of understanding why we do some of the tactics that we do is a bit lacking, I think, as well.
Just targeting English speakers. We do that all the time. It just seems to be part of an accepted library thing to do, but we never go in and program with, let's program for all communities so that everybody has access to this program on dementia, for instance, or to this program on, starting school. The library services aren't always thinking about all the languages that need to be reached, so that they too have the same equity to that program and the same access to those services.
Give us some standout examples of libraries successfully championing multicultural initiatives to bring the focus back onto the positives.
So I have some listed here. The Talking Faith Forum was an initiative that started in 2010 that was aligned with the Immigration Museum exhibition at the time, also called Talking Faith with a question mark. The explanation I got when I started working with the Interfaith Network of Greater Dandenong was the then CEO, Helen Heath. She asked me, did you know why we have a question mark? Because I thought the question mark was a mistake. Okay, grammar, grammatical mistake. But she asked, no, actually, the question mark is there. It's because we want people to ask, why are we talking about faith in such a diverse community? Like, why do I care about your faith, and why would you care about my faith, or spirituality or religion? And it's because we want to be able to be openly and safely share, our experiences, our why our faith, teachings of our faith, like how it goes, and why we do that, what are some of our learnings from it. And then the more we learn about each other, the more we can understand each other, and then the more that we can build a bridge of trust with each other, and that we can openly and safely share things. So it was a very rocky start, but we've got it to today. It's now 2025, so 15 years on, we're still doing it. We have one coming up in November, and it just involves a lot of people, like people from different faith attend, people who just attend because at these programs we have, music performances and things like that, and people want to come and just learn about it, even though they don't have an interest in the faith at all. So our Talking Faith Forum, I think, is one of the most successful initiatives here that I know. And other things we do here as well, which we sometimes take for granted here, but we don't actually realize, is that things like library help for adults, where people can actually come in, make a one-on-one appointment with one of the literacy officers, and actually sit down with them to do their citizenship application, like go through step by step, or sit down with them to do their resume, like you're solely dedicated to that person, and doing like job search and any sort of applications or forms. Anyone can use this service. So as long as you have a need that you need someone to help you fill in a form, you can come in to do it. Conversation Circle has been around for a long time here as well, and that's an open session to everyone. We also do citizenship sessions to assist people in getting their citizenship. We've got some beautiful stories sometimes. Like we had a mother, she tried 2 times and she failed, and she finally made herself go to one of her sessions, and she says, and then she came back later and she said, I've got my citizenship. Thank you so much for helping me. And so there's a lot of beautiful success stories like that. Greater Dandenong Libraries provides access to over 17 community languages, which is one of the largest collection in Victoria. Yeah, and we were one of the first champions for a World Cinema collection in libraries, which is a collection that's not restricted by any language. It doesn't matter if we have the language in our library at all. As long as has another language, we can add it to the collection for anyone who likes to watch films in other languages. And we also do very targeted promotions to communities for some of our programmings as well. So we use public methods such as going on SBS, doing interviews there, and then we were interviewed by radio stations. Like they reached out to us and said, we noticed that you're doing this particular program. We would love to talk to you more about it.
How can we measure the impact of multicultural library services and programs to ensure they meet community needs?
This is a really tricky question. I think there was a similar question recently where we were talking about the multicultural guidelines that ALIA Multicultural really would like to kind of progress further, because obviously libraries would like to demonstrate impact, and that's part of the language of the work that we do. I think in terms of like workforce, you can probably demonstrate impact by understanding how diverse your workforce is, and that's a measure in itself on whether your workforce has been diversified and you've improved in that space. So that's a really simple measure to kind of, if you put that as a target for your library service. And I guess as an extension, that could possibly provide measures in terms of community engagement. If your workforce has improved in representation, has this then led on to better community engagement with assessing how equitable we are with what we are doing? So I think the measures come down to measuring equity, reflecting on the services, programs, collections that we provide to communities. How equitable is our resourcing as a measure for each of our communities? Do some communities get better resource than others? And that's like one way of identifying a measure, because that could also impact on how engaged your communities are. The provision of language resources, do we adequately provide languages for the communities that we represent. That's a measure that we can actually start thinking about as a service, like, are we adequately providing the material for the communities to be engaged? Appropriate and accurate language translations. So when we're trying to connect with our communities, do we have the translated resources for our communities to actually understand our services and programs and collections and what we offer? And have we, put the effort in to make those translations appropriate and relevant to the different communities? Outreach and connection with communities to improve involvement. We do have outreach where we have like home library service and we go out to community. So what are the outreach services that our library service is doing with regards to communities of diverse backgrounds? Are we connecting with allied professions? Are we connecting with services and agencies that can help us reach communities better? So that might be another way of thinking about our own ability to connect. Have we taken those steps to connect with other areas that connect really well? And how can we work with those allied professions to improve our connection as well? Equity, inclusion, accessibility and access from the outset, then you can start thinking about, well, have we actually made an impact? But if you're not thinking about that gap from the start, then we're not designing with that in mind either.
Thank you, Mare. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point on rather than focusing on measuring the impact of initiatives, focusing on measuring the gaps that highlight the needs for these initiatives. So that's thank you for bringing that to light. What do you see as the most critical next steps to make it a positive future for multicultural communities, and how can we further advance advocate awareness efforts?
We are all speculators, I think. We can think we are including the community. We can think that we're very inclusive. We can think that we're making a safe space. But do we actually know what our community thinks? Are we actually just observing what we think from our perspective? And so how does that translate over to what the community thinks? So have we ever actually asked the community, how do you actually feel in the library? If a lot of our community is like, oh, something's wrong, okay, I won't tell you about it, I'll just stop coming. And that's what happens a lot. Like they feel like, oh, I don't need to tell you. If you're not doing it, then I don't need to tell you, you need to do it, because I feel like, why? Do I feel like I can't tell you because I feel like our community is small, or is it because I feel like you won't do anything about it? So, and then how do we make sure that the community feel comfortable to make these requests without being judged about making these requests? For example, like when I first started working at Dandenong, at that time there was a lot of Afghan migration into the city, like settlement in the Greater Dandenong area, and at that time, we were like, how do we understand that sometimes when a male patron comes in and they said, can I please speak to a male patron? It's nothing on us as the person or the staff. It's just that in their culture, we just have to understand that they prefer to speak to a male patron, or female patron prefers to speak to a female patron. And just having that understanding and sensitivity, cultural sensitivity, is important. It would be great if we could some way collect community feedback like that. So, but how do we actually make community feel like they can give us that feedback is also a challenge.
So there's a lot to think about, really.
We
don't have answers, I don't think. So when you said it's kind of speculative.
You've got a lot of answers. Like, there's a lot of ideas, and that's the strength of the group too, is to keep talking, to keep sharing experiences and new ideas and trying them out. And that's how we can. One of the things that came out of one of the first things the group worked on is the principle. Do you want to say a few words on the ALIA multicultural principles, Mare?
The ALIA multicultural principles, which have just been released, have actually been in progress for quite a few since the start date. Really, like they were the first thing that were put on the table as being a very important thing for ALIA to have. So we have subgroups in ALIA multicultural that work on like little projects, and so these guidelines were a subgroup project. It started that way, but then it doesn't stop with the subgroup. It then ends up going into the whole group, and we do this collaborative revision work because a small group won't know everything. It was very much grounded in the understanding that we always recognised as being of primary importance because they provided us a place from which to start advocacy at a local level. The intersectional understanding of our communities, that's one thing, but also the understanding of what it is to be of a multicultural background living on stolen land, and our relationship with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and how does our learning develop within multicultural communities so we understand our place and in this whole space, and how we actually can move to improve things as well. That's one thing that's kind of part of the growth. The other thing that we've never done well is we've never really done well when it comes to asylum seekers or new communities, emerging communities. We've always focused our services on what is the dominant community, and we've worked with the numbers at the top and gone backwards. So when you take a look at languages, you'll notice that the dominant communities are represented across many libraries, but the smaller language communities hardly have representation. And the question around how equitable that is, which is, I guess, fleshing it out a bit further. And one thing that's different this time is we're taking on a cross-sector approach. The principle that talks about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, which is the first principle in the ALIA multicultural principles, we actually put that to consultation as well. So the process is really important. And the reason the process is important is that it's recognizing of diversity and diverse viewpoints and diverse opinions, and we need like that collaborative approach to actually come to a shared understanding. And I think these kind of documents are really important.
A very inspiring and thought-provoking conversation. I really look forward to continuing working with you both towards a better future for multicultural communities in Australia.